So I'd just like to thank everyone, as well as Jennifer, our graphics genius, who's from or lives here in Austin. Thank you everyone for coming, being involved, and getting this film made and out there and seen.
So I guess on that note, to start off the Q&A, I'm just curious, at the ending, we ended with you completing the walk across Death Valley as well as with your wedding. Something that your mom mentioned, she was sort of nervous that that's something that may be difficult for you to find. And now you have a lovely wife. And I'm just curious, tying into that entire theme of possibility for you, like, what's life like now, I guess? It must be a lot of hope, a lot of happiness for you.
Life's amazing. We're all so very lucky. Just that walk prepared me for my most important walk, which was down the aisle and into my future. So life's great. I mean, we're all faced with challenges. Obviously, that is the way it goes. And I think by facing those challenges, accepting it, and being humble to the process, there's a tremendous amount to learn and to love, and ultimately to share. So.
Yeah, and also on that note, family is a really big piece of this story. Your mom is here, and you were so kind to open up and share your story in the film as well. So just in that regard, Aaron, you can speak on this as well. What has it been like to expose yourself and share that much honesty and that much truth in creating the story?
Today's the first time that I saw that, and to share it here, no, that wasn't anything that I really wanted to share, although it happened, and I think that the truth of it is, it's not anything that anyone in a similar situation, these are common themes for families. And I always wanted to share that when I knew that it was going to be in its right context. And I'm so grateful to Dom and Nadia for placing it in that context. Because it's meaningful, it's just real. And it also shows how you can, through just one step at a time, whether you're dealing with the injury or whatever it is in life that you are dealing with, you can get back up. And you can make whatever you've gone through be your guiding light, and let that be your source of power. So it certainly guides me in everything that I do today. There's nothing about this process that I'm not willing to share. So.
Nice. One more question before we open it up to the audience, because I'm sure there are some things you guys are curious about as well. For you, Dom, spending as much time as you did with Aaron through the walk, and I'm sure there are moments in there where you guys definitely opened up to each other, and having to see him take each step. I'm just curious what that was like for you as a storyteller, as a director, but also as, I'm assuming, a friend, and however bigger that bond got during that time.
Something I've never really discussed is it's a tribute to how special I think Aaron is, and how our subsequent relation is, in that my wife and I, Nadia and I, never set out to make a feature-length documentary about this story. We first of all made a short film, and then I wanted to make a film about the desert crossing adventure, and then it dawned on us, the more I knew, the more I got to know Aaron and his family, that this is a story that I've never heard before in its entirety. You have comeback stories, you have these very inspirational stories always, but there's always a little little bit of it missing, the holistic effect on family, and some of the more real stuff that goes on whether we like it or not. So I think I've certainly learned a huge amount as we've become really, really good friends. And during the walk I was worried about, well, just getting frustrated with going so slowly, to be honest. And actually...
First time he told you that?
But what actually happened very, very quickly is, and it surprised me, I became accustomed to the speed at which we were traveling through that desert, and actually I felt like I noticed so much more. Every hour was filled with a lot more than I would have expected had I even just been walking at my rate through the desert. And I think that's what our relationship has done to me. It's actually amplified my ability to take stuff in.
And teach you patience.
Yeah, a little bit of patience. It's taught me that. I still have a little ways to go.
Actually, one more quick thing I just remembered. I was curious about this. In the film itself, you mentioned that after you found out the information regarding the lack of physical activity you'd be able to have, one of the things you mentioned is that your humor is very physical. So many parts of your life you express it through physicality. But just seeing in the film and even interacting with you a little bit before and now, your humor explodes beyond that. So I just want to say that. But also the actual question, how much has that played a part in the process for you? Just humor, love, family, all those different aspects getting you to this point.
Well, we have to laugh at these difficult situations sometimes, but I'll tell you that the most important thing that has gotten me through all of this and any of this is love. I mean, my mother, my wife, my friends, and family, community, truly that is the differentiator. That is the single most important thing. And all we have really at the end of the day is our time here and our love, and all we can do with that is share it. So.
So with that, we'd love to open it up for any questions in the audience. Right in front.
Hi, hello. The question I have, I love music, and whenever I'm trying to get through my next part, I listen to music. What was on did you listen to music when you were walking across the desert? What was on it?
Actually, in the desert, there was no music. But I truly do agree with you. Music is a powerful catalyst for energy and focus. And I use it most of my days. But in the desert, the silence was profound.
There was a lot of music in the truck beforehand.
Did you sing anything while you were walking across the desert?
Sure, there were melodies and tunes and my own lyrics and some other things that came to mind, yeah. And as you saw, a little bit of Snoop Dogg. No, but at that point I was pretty delirious. So.
I will say, I think there was a stage at which I think you had earphones with you.
Yeah, but I never really used them.
No, and I definitely wanted him to feel the pain as much as possible and not be aided by any kind of a crutch. So it might have been my fault.
So, did you guys know each other before you started filming? Did you hear about his story and seek him out to film the project? How did your relationship begin?
To try and cut a fairly long story short, I used to be in front of the camera. I did lots of long bicycle expeditions in various places on the globe, and my second project, and the one that brought me to the States, was going to be a journey across the States on a specially designed tandem with people of varying abilities, sharing the ride and making the most of something they couldn't necessarily do independently. Aaron, by that stage, was training for the Paralympics, and we got in touch with a wide variety of organizations to see who might be interested in getting involved. Aaron was one of those people, and although he was too advanced in his own recovery and training to really benefit from the journey that we were taking on this tandem. He had already gone through the lame-looking tandem phase of his recovery. He came out on the first day to show his support and rode his trike with us for the first day from Santa Monica inland. And from that moment on, he appeared very briefly in that television series, and then I decided to make a short film about him, a short 5-minute film which toured a lot through the world, and then we decided that there was more there. So it really came through his own coming out to show support for one of our projects.
Sorry, I sort of have a second question for you, Aaron, and I've been struggling to figure out how to formulate it. But you seem to go from someone who's a thrill seeker, sort of a sensation junkie, to, and I don't mean this in a flippant way, but like a Zen master. You seem that, and maybe it's because everything had to slow down, but you psychologically you seem to lean into the spaciousness of your life now, and to observe the quality of your life in such a way that I'm just incredibly impressed by it. And I don't know, I just wanted to ask you, what has that been like for you? Or did it not seem like such a journey? I don't know how to quite formulate the question, but
Thank you. That means a lot to me because I try to consciously cultivate my awareness daily. I'm very grateful for every breath because there was a moment which we didn't go into too much detail about in the film, but I have experienced in my own mortality. I had respiratory failure in the hospital and in a moment of disillusion and death. And I have an awareness of an interconnectedness that guides me today. So I like to live full spectrum. It's a full salad bar. My plate's full. And I will absorb as much as I can for as long as I can and share it. So.
The thrill seeking hasn't stopped. That continues. I promise.
Calculated risk.
Yes.
Within reason.
I noticed that two of the other people that were featured in the film also had motorcycle accidents, either motocross or the older guy that was riding the desert. Has your perspective on motocross changed at all?
Well, I'm not riding. I mean, to each his own. You know, I have plenty of friends that have had, been in a car accident, or one young girl walking down the street in Santa Monica, a tree falls on her, and accidents happen. Obviously, elevate the risk on a dirt bike. But life happens to us all. I like to think it happens for us and not to us. We can choose to move forward or become a victim. I'm not a victim.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you still love motocross, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so I love the sport. I hate to love it. It's like, I appreciate the athleticism, the mechanics, the family camaraderie of amateur sports, and I have friends in the industry.
There's actually a section, I should let Katie talk about this, there's a section of her interview where she says there are two Aarons.
Well, there's just the Aaron before the accident and the Aaron after, and kind of what you were saying on about thrill seeker and still the Zen master. I think he has a great combination of both that he channels every day. He still is 19, where when he did have his accident, there was some sort of stop there, but at the same time, he's still wise beyond any years. What he's gone through is more than anyone else can. I mean, he's lived 2 lifetimes in one lifetime, so I think that really benefits to what he can share for other people.
Sorry, this is kind of half creative, half question. The film did a really good job telling the story and bringing out the purpose and inspiration through the
It's a good question. I discussed Aaron's adventure before we did the walk, and a lot of it was actually in the physical location of that place. In retrospect, it was kind of a vision quest, and that's definitely the part it played in the film. The landscape itself, I think, was responsible for a lot of the power of the story. And our plan really was not only to make it achievable for Aaron, and as you could see, like even on what we regard as pan-flat terrain, it's still a huge challenge. But also in that 2D landscape, you take away any distraction that might distract us from the fact that every single step that Aaron takes is a huge, monumental task. And I really wanted to clue the audience into sort of being aware, walking out of the theatre, if you like, and being aware of putting one foot in front of the other. So it's certainly, we hoped that it would become that metaphorical, and the way that we told the story non-linearly was because we realized the walk was both visually and metaphorically so powerful, we couldn't just leave it at the end of the film.
I will also add to that maybe even something we haven't talked about. For me, when I first heard that they were doing this Death Valley, or that Aaron was doing the Death Valley walk and that Dom was going to film it, our first 6 years, were really spent in a complete, we were almost invisible to anything but the next day and to what we had committed to, which was his recovery. And you know, we'd wake up on a Monday and I didn't know if it was Friday or Sunday or 6 o'clock or whatever, because each day just looked the same. So from a metaphorical point of view, it is perfect.
One more question up here.
Hey, Aaron, are those therapies going mainstream in any way, the restorative therapy?
Well, right now we're still pretty grassroots. We're 6.5 years in to the Center of Restorative Exercise. We just expanded our first location, and it's mainstream in our little community, but we would love to see it in y'all.
Thank you.
You know what's going to make it more mainstream is more individuals that engage in this kind of after programming. And that's just one person at a time. You know, fortunately today, there are more examples of improvement and therefore more opportunities than when Aaron was hurt, because we were absolute pioneers in that. So it's going to be the power of more and more people engaging in positive processes.
One thing I will say, which is just how we can get help from you guys, is as much as it's a very lovely thing for us to come to film festivals, one of the most valuable places this film can go is, you know, centers for therapy, hospitals, places where people are in the early stages of recovery, or maybe not recovering at all yet, but just in the negative stages that the film talks about, where you think there is no way out. So we are in the process of creating a tour through hospitals and therapy centers, and if anyone knows of a contact which might want to show the film in their institution, we'd love to hear from you as well.
One last question right here.
The young man that you visited and that was bedridden and he said that he passed away. What do you think the differences are as far as his outcome?
Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of opportunities for people to continue ongoing restorative therapies or rehabilitation. In his particular community, there's none. He did come down and visit us for a very short period of time, which is not enough. You have to commit your life to this process. You have to build a lifestyle around it. As we did, where we relocated and built life accordingly. And for Josh, unfortunately, he just did not have the resources around him to pursue it. He had a will inside him. He was young and ambitious, and he wanted it, and I would sit and talk to him, and we related on the common ground of motorcycles, but he just wanted to get better, and he didn't have that opportunity. And that was really sad for me to see that outcome for him.
Okay, super last one.
I just wanted to say, when you go take this home to the hospital and show it to the patients, that try to encourage the clinical staff. As a nurse, you gotta be reminded. So the more you can get people in there that believe that are helping you, I think that helps crucial. Just help them out, to know these little things.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. You guys are the gatekeepers of information. You guys planted the seeds early on in terms of quality care, love, and information, education. Those seeds were far more powerful than a negative prognosis or a chilly bedside manner.
Well, and also to add to that, to really encourage the positivity outcome rather than the probability outcome. I think if we can make headway in one area with this film, if we can help change that paradigm, it's going to be, because it's those seeds that are planted. Believe me, that 1 in a million chance. There were so many days that I would question my own sanity, thinking maybe they're right, telling me that I'm doing my son the greatest injustice by not allowing him to adapt and get his own head around what his future looks like. And I refused, but yet, I did severely question my sanity. I'm glad I only questioned it, though.
All right, and with that being said, I just want to personally and on behalf of Austin Film Festival, thank you guys for coming out. I know I talked to you guys in the beginning, right before we stepped into the show, but Aaron, for us personally in the office, especially a couple weeks before we started our year-long endeavor, you are a big inspiration for us. So thank you, honestly, for being here. And Dom, thank you for creating this story, and also to your lovely wife and your mom. Thank you both for supporting him and being here. With that being said, thank you guys also for coming out, and hope you all have a great day. One more time for